Nothing quite prepares you for the moment when your wife of 8 years looks you straight in the eye and tells you her ex was better in bed. That particular gem landed on me this morning, right between the burnt toast and lukewarm coffee. "You know what, Nick?" Erica said, not even looking up from her phone. "My ex was better in bed than you'll ever be. I still think about him." I'm Nick Garrison, 39 years old, IT support specialist for a mid-sized insurance company. I fix computers for a living, which means I spend my days dealing with people who think turning something off and on again is rocket science. But this morning, staring at my wife across our kitchen table, I realized I'd been the one who needed a hard reboot. Erica Garrison, soon to be ex-wife if I had anything to say about it, was 34, worked in HR management, and had apparently decided that our marriage was just another performance review she could fail me on. She'd been distant for months, glued to her phone like it contained the secrets of the universe, going out for girls' nights 3 times a week. Should have known something was up when she swapped yoga for CrossFit, I muttered to myself, watching her perfectly manicured fingers dance across her screen. "Did you say something?" she asked, still not looking at me. "Just wondering who you're texting at 7 in the morning. Fiona, we're planning another workout session." Fiona, her best friend since college, a wannabe influencer who documented every meal, every outfit, every thought that crossed her mind. If Fiona was involved, this whole thing was about to get messier than a server crash on a Monday morning. I'd overheard them talking last week when Fiona came over. Through the thin walls of our modest ranch house, their conversation carried like a bad internet connection, spotty but clear enough to get the message. "These workout sessions with TJ are incredible," Erica had giggled. "He really knows how to push me to my limits." "Girl, the way you describe those late-night training sessions, I'm getting jealous," Fiona had replied. "Maybe I should sign up for some personal attention too." Travis, TJ Jeffers, gym manager, 36 years old, drove a jacked-up Dodge Charger that he parked like he owned the world. Local legend in his own mind. The kind of guy who wore tank tops in December and called everyone bro, unironically. Now, sitting across from my wife as she delivered her morning insult with the casual cruelty of someone canceling a subscription, everything clicked into place like a puzzle I'd been too stupid to solve. "You know what, Erica?" I said, standing up and grabbing my coffee mug. "You're absolutely right. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." She looked up for the first time all morning, confusion flickering across her face. "What?" "You deserve better. We both do." I walked to the sink, rinsed my mug, and set it in the dishwasher. Then I went to our bedroom and started packing. "What are you doing?" she called after me. "Getting out of your way," I replied, shoving clothes into my old duffel bag. "Wouldn't want to interfere with your workout schedule." "Nick, don't be dramatic. We can work through this." "Work through what? You just told me you fantasize about another man. That ship has sailed, hit an iceberg, and sunk to the bottom of the ocean." She appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're overreacting." "Am I? Tell me, Erica, when exactly did you start training with TJ? Before or after you stopped coming home until midnight?" Her face went pale, then flushed red. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough." I zipped up the bag and slung it over my shoulder. "I'll be back for the rest of my stuff when you're not here." As I walked past her toward the front door, she grabbed my arm. "Nick, wait. We need to talk about this like adults." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. For a split second, I saw something that might have been regret. But it was too little, too late. "Adults don't cheat on their spouses and then insult them at breakfast," I said. "Adults don't lie about working late when they're really getting their cardio somewhere else." I pulled free and headed for the door. "You'll regret this, loser!" she shouted after me as I walked to my car. I paused with my hand on the door handle and turned back. Not as much as you will, sweetheart. As I drove away from the house we'd bought together 3 years ago, I caught a glimpse of Mrs. Conway, our retired nurse neighbor, peeking through her curtains. The neighborhood gossip queen had probably heard every word of our argument through the thin walls and open windows. Good. Let the whole street know that St. Erica wasn't quite as perfect as she pretended to be. I checked into the Starlight Motel on the outskirts of town, a place that had seen better decades and smelled like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. The clerk, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, handed me a key to room 247. "How long you staying?" she asked. "However long it takes," I replied. She nodded like she'd heard that answer before. "Ice machines down the hall, vending machines by the office. Checkouts at 11, but we're flexible if you need more time." Room 247 was exactly what you'd expect from a $40 a night motel. Brown carpet that had probably been installed during the Carter administration, a bed that sagged in the middle, and a bathroom that made airplane restrooms look spacious. But it was mine, and right now, that was enough. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. 17 missed calls from Erica, 12 text messages ranging from angry to apologetic to threatening. I turned the phone off and tossed it on the nightstand. For the first time in months, maybe years, the silence felt peaceful. 3 days into my new life at the Starlight Motel, I'd eaten enough instant ramen to qualify for a sodium overdose and developed a detailed plan for what came next. Revenge, as they say, is a dish best served with a side of careful preparation and a healthy dose of patience. I'd turned my phone back on that morning, immediately regretting the decision as it buzzed with notifications like an angry wasp. Erica had escalated from apologetic to furious to desperate, with a few stops at manipulative along the way. "Nick, please call me. We can fix this." Monday, 2:17 p.m. "Where are you staying? People are asking questions." Monday, 8:43 p.m. "You're being childish. Come home so we can talk." Tuesday, 6:22 a.m. "Fine. Be that way. I'm better off without you anyway." Tuesday, 11:15 a.m. "TJ says you're probably having a breakdown. Maybe you should see someone." Tuesday, 4:38 p.m. The last message had arrived this morning. "Everyone knows you were the problem in our marriage. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Everyone knows. That phrase stuck with me as I drove across town to Raj's bar, a dive called Murphy's that served as the unofficial headquarters for people who'd given up on pretending their lives were perfect. Raj Patel had been tending bar for 15 years and listening to sob stories for even longer. He was 40, divorced twice, and had the kind of dry humor that came from watching human nature at its worst on a nightly basis. "You look like someone who needs either a drink or a lawyer," he said as I slid onto a bar stool. "Maybe both. Erica's been busy spreading her version of events around town. Let me guess. You're the controlling husband who drove her into the arms of another man?" "Close. Apparently I'm having a breakdown and was always the problem in our marriage." Raj poured me a beer without being asked. Funny how that works. The cheater becomes the victim, and the victim becomes the villain. It's like some kind of twisted magic trick. "Speaking of magic tricks, I need to disappear for a while. Can you recommend somewhere to lay low?" "Depends. How low are we talking?" "Low enough to do some research without anyone knowing where I am." Raj studied my face for a long moment, then reached under the bar and pulled out a business card. "Stan Morrison, private investigator. Old school guy, drinks too much, but he's good at finding things people want to keep hidden." I pocketed the card. "What about the apartment above the laundromat on 5th Street? Still available?" "Yeah, but it's not exactly luxury living. No dishwasher, questionable plumbing, neighbors who think 3 a.m. is the perfect time to practice their amateur opera." Sounds perfect. 2 hours later, I was the proud renter of a one-bedroom apartment that made my motel room look like a penthouse suite. The walls were thin enough to hear conversations from 3 units away. The carpet was a color that could generously be called industrial beige, and the kitchen consisted of a hot plate, a mini fridge, and a sink that had seen better decades. But it had internet, and that was all I needed. I set up my laptop on the folding table that served as both desk and dining room furniture, cracked open another beer, and got to work. Erica had always been careless with her passwords. She used the same one for everything: Princess 1985, her birth year, and the nickname her mother had called her since childhood. It took me exactly 3 minutes to reset her email password using her security questions, all of which I knew by heart after 8 years of marriage. What I found in her inbox made my stomach turn, but not with sadness, with cold, calculating anger. The affair with TJ had been going on for 4 months. Their messages read like a bad romance novel written by someone with a limited vocabulary and no sense of shame. "Can't wait for our private training session tonight," TJ had written last week. "Going to work you out real good." "You're so much better than my husband," Erica had replied. "He's clueless about what a real woman needs." But the real treasure was buried deeper in their conversation history. Screenshots of messages TJ had sent to other women, bragging about his married conquest and making crude jokes about stealing someone's wife. "This Erica chick thinks she's special," he'd written to someone named Amber. "Just another bored housewife looking for excitement. Easy target." I saved everything to a secure folder and kept digging. Erica's social media accounts revealed another layer of deception. She'd been documenting her single-girl lifestyle for months, posting photos from bars and restaurants with captions about living my best life and finding myself. In several photos, I could see TJ in the background, always just out of clear view, but obviously there. The comments from her friends were illuminating too. "Girl, you deserve so much better than that loser husband," Fiona had written under a photo of Erica at some upscale restaurant I'd never been to. "Nick never appreciated you anyway," someone named Jessica had added. "Time to trade up," another friend had commented with a series of fire emojis. So much for keeping things private. I picked up the business card Raj had given me and dialed the number. "Morrison Investigations," a gravelly voice answered. "Mr. Morrison? I need some information about someone." "What kind of information?" "The kind that might be embarrassing if it became public." There was a pause, then a chuckle. "My favorite kind. When can you come in?" Stan Morrison's office was located above a pawn shop downtown, accessed through a narrow staircase that creaked with every step. The man himself looked like Central Casting's idea of a private investigator. Rumpled suit, 5 o'clock shadow at noon, and a desk covered in case files and empty coffee cups. "Travis Jeffers," he said, writing the name on a legal pad. "Gym manager, drives the Charger, thinks he's God's gift to women. Yeah, I know the type. What can you find out about him?" "Depends on how deep you want me to dig and how much you're willing to pay. Deep enough to find anything he wouldn't want his employer to know about. Or his other girlfriends." Stan's eyebrows went up. "Other girlfriends? Call it a hunch. Hunches are usually right in my line of work. Give me a week and $500, and I'll have enough information to write his unauthorized biography." I handed him the cash. "One more thing. I need this kept completely confidential." "Son, discretion is the only thing keeping me in business. Your secret's safe with me." As I walked back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation or forgiveness, but hope for something much more satisfying. Justice. Stan Morrison delivered his report exactly 1 week later, sliding a manila envelope across his desk with the satisfied expression of a man who'd struck gold. "Your hunch was right," he said. "TJ Jeffers is busier than a one-legged cat in a sandbox. The photographs inside the envelope told a story that even Hollywood would have found too predictable. TJ entering and leaving apartments across town, always with a different woman. TJ at restaurants with various dates, clearly not telling any of them about the others. TJ at a hotel with someone who definitely wasn't Erica. He's got at least 4 women on rotation, Stan continued, including your wife, a dental hygienist named Amber who thinks they're exclusive, a college girl who's probably young enough to be his daughter, and a divorced real estate agent who's been buying him expensive gifts. Any of them know about the others? Not a clue. He's got them all convinced they're special. Classic player behavior. The financial records Stan had obtained through perfectly legal means painted an even more interesting picture. TJ was living beyond his means, bouncing between the apartments of his various girlfriends to avoid paying his own rent, and his gym employment was hanging by a thread due to multiple complaints from female clients. Apparently, he's been using his position to hit on married women who work out there, Stan explained. Management's been getting complaints for months, but they've been letting it slide because he brings in business. What kind of complaints? Inappropriate touching during training sessions, showing up at clients' homes uninvited, sending unsolicited messages through the gym's app. The usual predator playbook. I studied the photographs again, particularly one that showed TJ and Erica in his car outside a motel. The timestamp showed it was taken during one of her supposed late nights at work. This is perfect, I said. How much do I owe you? Consider it a public service. Guys like TJ need to be taken down a peg or two. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a bottle of beer and a plan that was both simple and beautiful in its symmetry. TJ had built his little empire on deception and manipulation. Time to watch it crumble. I started with the gym. Using an anonymous email account, I sent copies of TJ's dating app profiles and screenshots of his messages to every female member whose email I could find through their publicly available class schedules. The subject line was simple: your personal trainer's other clients. Within hours, my phone was buzzing with notifications from the gym's social media pages. Women were sharing stories, comparing experiences, and demanding answers. The gym's management, faced with a public relations nightmare, had no choice but to respond. By morning, TJ was suspended pending investigation. Phase 2 involved Amber, the dental hygienist who thought she was TJ's only girlfriend. I'd done some research and discovered that Amber worked at a practice downtown and had a reputation for being, shall we say, direct in her communications. She also happened to own a key to TJ's apartment, which he'd given her during one of his romantic gestures. An anonymous tip about TJ's other women, complete with photographs and evidence, landed in Amber's inbox on Thursday morning. By Thursday evening, TJ's prized Charger had sugar in the gas tank and cheater keyed into the paint job. The beauty of it was that I didn't have to do anything except provide information. TJ's own actions had created the ammunition. I just made sure it reached the right people. But the real masterpiece was yet to come. Saturday evening was the neighborhood's monthly block party, a tradition that Mrs. Conway had started years ago as a way to build community spirit. In reality, it was an opportunity for everyone to gossip, show off, and settle social scores under the guise of neighborly fellowship. Erica, playing the role of abandoned wife, had been making the rounds all week, telling anyone who would listen about my sudden breakdown and erratic behavior. According to the neighborhood gossip network, I was unstable, possibly dangerous, and had been emotionally abusive throughout our marriage. Time to set the record straight. I arrived at the block party fashionably late, carrying a cooler of beer and wearing my most innocent smile. Mrs. Conway spotted me immediately, her eyes lighting up with the prospect of fresh drama. "Nick, we weren't sure you'd come," she said, loud enough for half the street to hear. "Wouldn't miss it, Mrs. Conway. I brought beer for everyone." Erica was holding court near the dessert table, surrounded by sympathetic neighbors who were hanging on her every word. She was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with money from our joint account. "It's been so hard," she was saying as I approached. "He just snapped one day and walked out. Didn't even try to work things out. I'm worried about his mental state." "That must be terrifying," said Janet from 2 houses down. "Living with someone who's unstable. You have no idea. The things he said to me." I cleared my throat. "Hi, everyone. Mind if I join the conversation?" The group went quiet, and Erica's face went pale. "Nick, I didn't know you were coming." "Just wanted to clear up a few misunderstandings," I said pleasantly. "Erica, would you like to tell everyone why I really moved out? Or should I?" "You're not well, Nick. Maybe you should go home and rest." "I'm feeling great, actually. Better than I have in months." I pulled out my phone and opened the audio recording app. In fact, I've been feeling so good that I've been thinking clearly for the first time in years. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, but I could hear the nervousness in her voice. "It means I finally figured out why you were working so many late nights, and why you suddenly became so interested in fitness." I hit play on a recording I'd made of her conversation with Fiona, the one where they'd discussed TJ's training sessions in explicit detail. The audio was crystal clear, and Erica's voice was unmistakable. As the recording played, I watched the faces of our neighbors change from sympathy to shock to disgust. That's taken out of context," Erica stammered. "Really? What context makes he's so much better than my husband sound innocent?" Mrs. Conway's mouth was hanging open. Janet had taken a step back. Even Mr. Peterson, who usually minded his own business, was shaking his head in disapproval. "You recorded me without permission," Erica said. "That's illegal." "Actually, it's not. We live in a one-party consent state, and since I was present during the conversation, I had every right to record it." I smiled at the gathered crowd. "Funny thing about the law, it tends to protect innocent people." Erica looked around at the faces surrounding her, realizing that the narrative she'd been spinning was unraveling faster than cheap yarn. "I think I should go," she said quietly. "Probably a good idea," Mrs. Conway replied, her voice ice-cold. "We'll be sure to keep Nick in our prayers during this difficult time." As Erica hurried away, I opened my cooler and started handing out beers. "So, who wants to hear about my new apartment? It's got character, which is a polite way of saying the plumbing makes interesting noises." The crowd laughed, and just like that, the social tide had turned. I was no longer the unstable husband who'd abandoned his wife. I was the victim of infidelity who'd handled a bad situation with dignity and grace. Sometimes the truth really is the best revenge. The fallout from the block party spread through our social circle like wildfire through dry grass. By Monday morning, Erica's carefully constructed image as the wronged wife had crumbled completely. Her own mother, the formidable Mrs. Huntley, had called to express her disappointment in terms that would have made a drill sergeant blush. I knew this because Erica had left me a tearful voicemail at 3 a.m. "Nick, please call me back. Mom cut off my credit cards and said she's ashamed of me. People at work are looking at me funny. I think someone told my boss about everything. Please, we need to talk." I deleted the message without responding and got back to work. My next target was Erica's professional reputation. She'd spent years building her image as a competent HR manager, someone who handled workplace disputes with wisdom and integrity. The irony of someone who preached about professional conduct while having an affair wasn't lost on me. Marta Gonzalez worked in Erica's department and had never made any secret of her dislike for my soon-to-be ex-wife. They'd been competing for the same promotion for months, and Marta had watched Erica get preferential treatment from their male boss with barely concealed resentment. An anonymous email containing screenshots of Erica's more explicit conversations with TJ landed in Marta's inbox Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, those same screenshots had somehow found their way to the company's internal investigation team. The beauty of office politics is that you don't need to do much to start an avalanche. You just need to give the right person the right ammunition and let gravity do the rest. Meanwhile, TJ was dealing with his own problems. His suspension from the gym had become a termination after the investigation revealed a pattern of inappropriate behavior going back years. His landlord, tired of late rent payments and noise complaints, had started eviction proceedings. And his beloved Charger, after Amber's sugar in the gas tank treatment, was sitting in a repair shop with a bill that exceeded its actual value. I decided it was time for a more direct approach. Murphy's Bar on a Wednesday night was the perfect place for a casual encounter. TJ had been drowning his sorrows there every evening since his world started falling apart, and I'd been tracking his routine through social media posts and simple observation. He was already 3 drinks in when I walked through the door, slumped over the bar like a deflated balloon. Raj caught my eye and nodded toward an empty stool at the far end of the bar. "Whiskey, neat," I told him, loud enough for TJ to hear. TJ's head came up slowly, his eyes focusing on me with the careful concentration of someone who'd been drinking steadily for hours. "Well, well," he slurred, "if it isn't the husband." "TJ." I raised my glass in a mock toast. "How's unemployment treating you?" "Very funny." He stumbled off his stool and walked over to where I was sitting. "You think you're real smart, don't you?" "Smart enough to figure out what my wife was doing during all those late-night training sessions." "She came to me, man. Said you couldn't satisfy her. Said you were boring in bed and boring in life." I took a sip of whiskey and smiled. "Is that what she told you? Interesting, because that's exactly what she told the dental hygienist about you, and the real estate agent, and the college girl." TJ's face went red. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Amber says hi, by the way. She wanted me to thank you for the entertainment. Apparently watching your car get towed was the highlight of her week." "You son of a—" TJ swung at me with all the coordination of a drunk man trying to swat a fly. I leaned back, and his fist sailed harmlessly past my face before he lost his balance and crashed into a table full of empty glasses. The sound of breaking glass brought immediate attention from everyone in the bar, including Raj, who vaulted over the bar with surprising agility for a man his age. "That's enough," Raj said, grabbing TJ by the arm. "You're done for the night." "He started it," TJ protested as Raj dragged him toward the door. "Actually, you started it about 4 months ago," I called after him. "I'm just finishing it." As the door swung shut behind TJ, the bar erupted in laughter and applause. I finished my whiskey, left a generous tip, and walked out into the night feeling better than I had in years. The next morning brought news that Erica had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of her company's investigation. Apparently, having explicit conversations about extramarital affairs on company time violated several policies about professional conduct and appropriate use of company resources. But the real coup de grace was yet to come. I'd been saving Erica's financial indiscretions for last. During my investigation of our joint accounts, I'd discovered that she'd been skimming money for months, ostensibly for charity donations that never actually happened. The amounts were small enough to avoid detection, but large enough to add up to a significant sum over time. More importantly, she'd been using our joint credit card to pay for her affair. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts for TJ, all charged to an account that I was legally responsible for. Time to cut off the funding for her new lifestyle. I walked into our bank Friday morning with a folder full of documentation and a plan that was both legal and devastating. The account manager, a pleasant woman named Carol who'd handled our finances for years, listened with growing amazement as I explained the situation. "I want to close all joint accounts immediately," I said. "And I want to dispute every charge related to her affair as unauthorized use of our credit." That's quite a list," Carol said, flipping through the printed statements I'd provided. "Are you sure about this?" "Absolutely. I never authorized her to use our money to cheat on me." Within an hour, Erica's access to our joint funds was completely cut off. Her credit cards were canceled, her debit card was deactivated, and every penny of our shared assets was frozen, pending the divorce proceedings. My phone started ringing before I'd even left the bank parking lot. "Nick, what did you do?" Erica's voice was shrill with panic. "My cards aren't working. I can't buy groceries. I can't pay rent." "Funny thing about joint accounts," I replied. "They require both parties to agree on major purchases. I never agreed to fund your affair. You can't do this. I'll sue you." "With what money? Your lawyer will want a retainer, and last I checked, your mother cut off your allowance." The line went quiet for a long moment. When Erica spoke again, her voice had changed from angry to desperate. "Please, Nick, I made a mistake. Can't we work this out?" "You made a choice, Erica. Choices have consequences. Welcome to yours." I hung up and turned off my phone. As I drove back to my apartment, I caught sight of TJ's Charger, or what was left of it, being loaded onto a tow truck. The repo man was earning his money today. Sometimes karma doesn't need help. Sometimes it just needs a little push in the right direction. 2 weeks after cutting off Erica's financial lifeline, I received an unexpected visitor at my apartment. The knock came at 7 in the evening, tentative and almost apologetic. Through the peephole, I could see Erica standing in the hallway, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. She was wearing jeans and a sweater I recognized from early in our marriage, before she'd decided that designer clothes were necessary for her image. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. This was the Erica I'd fallen in love with a decade ago, before ambition and social climbing had transformed her into someone I barely recognized. "Nick, please," she said through the door. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. "What do you want, Erica?" "Can I come in? This is embarrassing enough without having this conversation in the hallway." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her enter. She looked around the sparse apartment with a mixture of surprise and something that might have been regret. "This is where you've been living? It's temporary. What do you want?" She sat down on my second-hand couch without being invited, a gesture that would have annoyed me a month ago, but now just seemed pathetic. "I want to apologize," she said. "Really apologize, not just say the words. What I did was wrong, and I know that now. What you did was have an affair for 4 months and then insult me when I found out about it. It wasn't supposed to happen. TJ was just paying attention to me, making me feel attractive and wanted. You'd been so distant lately, working all the time, and I felt invisible." I sat down in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. "So this is my fault?" "No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I was lonely and made a terrible decision. But it's over now. TJ and we're done. He showed his true colors when things got difficult. Let me guess, he wasn't interested in supporting you through your current financial difficulties?" Her face flushed. "He said I was too much drama, that he didn't sign up for this level of complications." Shocking. The man who was cheating with you turned out to be unreliable. Who could have seen that coming? You have every right to be sarcastic. I deserve it. But Nick, we had 8 good years together. Doesn't that count for something? I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse or just desperation. "What exactly are you asking me, Erica?" "I'm asking if there's any chance we can work through this. Go to counseling, start over, rebuild what we had." "What we had was built on trust. You broke that." "Trust can be rebuilt. People do it all the time. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, complete transparency with my phone and email. I'll quit my job if you want. Start somewhere fresh where nobody knows what happened." She was saying all the right words, hitting all the notes that a genuinely repentant spouse would hit. But something felt off, like a performance that was just a little too polished. "Why now?" I asked. 2 weeks ago, you were telling people I was mentally unstable. Last week you were threatening to sue me. What changed? I realized what I'd lost, what I'd thrown away for something that was never real. She reached across the space between us and touched my hand. I love you, Nick. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do. Her touch felt familiar but foreign, like putting on clothes that no longer fit properly. I didn't pull away, but I didn't respond either. I need time to think about this, I said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But please, just consider it. Consider us. After she left, I sat in my apartment for a long time, staring at the place where she'd been sitting. Part of me, the part that remembered our wedding day, our first apartment, the dreams we'd shared, wanted to believe her, wanted to think that people could change, that love could overcome betrayal, that 8 years of marriage was worth fighting for. But a larger part of me, the part that had been planning and scheming for weeks, recognized a performance when I saw one. The next morning, I called Stan Morrison. I need you to keep an eye on someone for a few days, I told him. Your wife? Ex-wife. She paid me a visit last night with a very convincing apology and a request to reconcile. But you don't believe her. Let's just say I'd like to verify her story before I make any decisions. Stan's report arrived 3 days later, and it confirmed every suspicion I'd had. Erica's reconciliation attempt had nothing to do with love and everything to do with survival. Her job was hanging by a thread. Her mother had cut her off financially, and her social circle had largely abandoned her. She was facing the prospect of losing our house, which was in both our names, but which she couldn't afford on her own. More interesting was what Stan had discovered about her recent activities. She hadn't been sitting at home contemplating her mistakes and planning a genuine apology. She'd been meeting with a divorce attorney, trying to figure out how to maximize her settlement and minimize the financial consequences of her affair. The attorney had apparently given her some uncomfortable news. Adultery was still grounds for an unfavorable divorce settlement in our state, and the evidence of her affair was overwhelming. Her best bet for financial security was reconciliation, at least long enough to rebuild her image and strengthen her legal position. But the real revelation was in the photographs Stan had taken outside the attorney's office. Erica emerging with Fiona, both of them laughing as they walked to their car. Whatever emotional devastation she'd displayed in my apartment had evaporated pretty quickly once she was out of my sight. Time for the final act. I called Erica that evening and asked her to meet me for dinner. I've been thinking about what you said and I'd like to discuss it properly. Really? The hope in her voice sounded genuine, but I knew better now. Really? How about Saturday night, that Italian place downtown you used to love? That sounds perfect. Should I dress up? Wear whatever makes you comfortable. This isn't about impressing anyone. Saturday evening, I arrived at the restaurant early and requested a table in the back corner, away from the main dining area, but still visible to other patrons. I wanted privacy for our conversation, but witnesses for what was about to happen. Erica arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a black dress that I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She'd clearly put effort into her appearance, hair professionally styled, makeup carefully applied, jewelry that caught the light just right. You look beautiful, I said, as she sat down, and I meant it. Whatever else she was, Erica had always been stunning. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. We ordered wine and made small talk about work, the weather, anything except the elephant in the room. It felt like a first date with someone I'd known forever, awkward and familiar at the same time. So, she said, after the waiter had taken our dinner order, have you thought about what we discussed? I have, and I have some questions. Of course. Ask me anything. When did you first realize you wanted to save our marriage? The night you left. I knew immediately that I'd made a terrible mistake. But you didn't try to contact me for 3 days. I was giving you space to cool down. I thought if I pushed too hard, you'd just get angrier. And the things you told the neighbors about my mental state? She had the grace to look embarrassed. I was hurt and defensive. I said things I didn't mean because I was scared and confused. What about TJ? When did that relationship end? The day after our fight. I told him it was over and that I was going to try to fix my marriage. I nodded thoughtfully and took a sip of wine. That's interesting because I have information that suggests otherwise. Her face went pale. What kind of information? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery, turning the screen so she could see the images Stan had taken. Erica and TJ at a coffee shop 2 days ago. Erica and TJ in his car outside a motel. Erica and TJ arguing in a parking lot, but clearly still involved. These were taken this week, I said quietly, after your touching apology and request for reconciliation. Erica stared at the photos, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Nick, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You've gotten very good at explanations lately, but I'm not interested in hearing them. I put my phone away and signaled for the waiter. Check, please. Nick, wait. Please, let you what? Lie to me again? Pretend this was all part of some master plan to test my forgiveness? Save it, Erica. I've heard enough of your stories. The waiter approached with the check, and I handed him my credit card without looking at the total. You hired someone to follow me, Erica said, her voice rising. That's sick. What's sick is trying to manipulate someone into taking you back while you're still sleeping with the man you cheated with. Other diners were starting to look in our direction, drawn by the tension at our table. Erica noticed and lowered her voice, but her expression had shifted from apologetic to angry. You self-righteous piece of garbage. You think you're so perfect, but you're just a boring, small-minded little man who couldn't keep his wife interested. And there she is, I said, standing up. The real Erica. Thanks for reminding me why I left. I signed the check and walked toward the exit, leaving her sitting alone at the table. As I reached the door, I heard her call after me, but I didn't turn around. The trap had worked perfectly. Erica had revealed her true motivations, and I had witnesses to her deception. More importantly, I had closure. The woman I'd married was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. What remained was a stranger wearing her face, and I was finally ready to let that stranger go. The annual Riverside Community Festival arrived 3 weeks later like a gift from the universe. It was the kind of small-town event that brought everyone together, families with strollers, teenagers trying to look cool while riding carnival rides, elderly couples sharing funnel cake on park benches. The perfect setting for what I had planned. I'd spent the intervening weeks in a strange state of peace. The restaurant encounter had given me the closure I needed, and the divorce papers I'd filed were making their way through the legal system with satisfying efficiency. Erica's attempts to contact me had dwindled from desperate to angry to non-existent, which told me she'd finally accepted that reconciliation was impossible. Or so I thought. I was manning the dunking booth for the volunteer fire department, a job that involved sitting on a platform above a tank of water while people paid $5 to throw baseballs at a target that would drop me into the drink. It was good-natured fun, and I was enjoying the chance to interact with neighbors who'd shown me nothing but support since the truth about my marriage had come out. "Come on, Nick," shouted Mrs. Conway from the crowd. "My grandson's got a good arm. You might want to hold your breath." I was laughing and trading jokes with the crowd when I spotted Erica pushing through the people gathered around the booth. She looked like she'd been crying, and her hair was disheveled in a way that suggested she'd been running her hands through it. Behind her, looking equally agitated, was TJ. This wasn't going to end well. "Nick!" she called out, her voice carrying over the carnival noise. "We need to talk!" "I'm working," I replied, gesturing to the line of people waiting to try their luck at dunking me. "Maybe later." "No, now!" She pushed past the family at the front of the line, ignoring their protests. "You can't just ignore me forever." The crowd was starting to murmur, sensing drama. I could see phones coming out as people prepared to document whatever was about to happen. "Erica, You're making a scene. Why don't you go enjoy the festival and we can talk later when you've calmed down? Calm down? You've destroyed my life, my job, my friends, my family. They all think I'm some kind of monster because of you. TJ stepped up beside her, trying to look intimidating but mostly managing to look uncomfortable. Yeah, man. You've been spreading lies about us all over town. I haven't spread any lies, I said calmly. I've just made sure people know the truth. The truth? Erica's voice was getting shrill. The truth is that you're a vindictive, petty little man who can't handle the fact that his wife found someone better. The crowd was growing larger, drawn by the spectacle. I could see carnival workers pausing in their duties to watch, families stopping their activities to stare. This was exactly what I'd been hoping for. Someone better? I laughed. You mean TJ? The guy who got fired for harassing women at work? The guy who was cheating on you with 3 other women while you were cheating on me with him? TJ's face went red. That's not true. Ask Amber, or Jessica, or that college girl whose name I can never remember. I looked directly at Erica. Did he tell you about them? Did he mention that he was calling you an easy target to his other girlfriends? You're lying. But even as she said it, I could see doubt creeping into her expression. Show her the screenshots, TJ. Show her what you really think of her. TJ was looking increasingly uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a boxer who wanted to throw a punch but couldn't find an opening. This is ridiculous, he muttered. Come on, Erica, let's get out of here. But Erica wasn't ready to leave. 8 years of marriage had taught me to recognize her tells, and right now she was building up to a full meltdown. You think you've won, she said, pointing an accusatory finger at me. You think you're so smart with your little revenge schemes and your private investigators, but you're just a sad, pathetic loser who couldn't satisfy his own wife. The crowd was silent now, everyone watching this personal drama play out in public. I could see Mrs. Conway shaking her head in disapproval, families covering their children's ears, teenagers recording everything on their phones. You're right, I said quietly. I couldn't satisfy you. I couldn't give you the drama and excitement you were looking for. I was just a boring husband who loved you and thought that was enough. For a moment, something flickered across her face, regret, maybe, or recognition of what she'd lost. But it was gone quickly, replaced by fury. Don't you dare try to make me feel guilty, you— She lunged forward, her hand raised to slap me, but I was sitting on a platform 4 feet above her head. In her anger and desperation, she'd forgotten about the height difference. I leaned back slightly, easily avoiding her reach, and Erica's momentum carried her forward into the base of the dunking booth. She stumbled, tried to catch herself, and ended up falling backward into the crowd. The crowd scattered to avoid her, and Erica landed hard on her backside in the dirt, her dress riding up and her carefully styled hair now a mess. The indignity of it seemed to break something in her, and she started crying, not the pretty, delicate tears of a woman seeking sympathy, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone whose world was falling apart. TJ, faced with the choice between helping his girlfriend or preserving his own dignity, chose self-preservation and started backing away from the scene. Where are you going? Erica called after him. TJ, help me up. This is crazy, Erica. I'm not dealing with this drama anymore. And just like that, he was gone, disappearing into the crowd and leaving Erica sitting in the dirt, crying and alone. Mrs. Conway, despite her disapproval of Erica's behavior, stepped forward to help her to her feet. Come on, dear. Let's get you cleaned up. Erica pushed her away. Don't touch me. This is all his fault. She pointed at me again, her makeup streaked with tears. He planned this. He wanted to humiliate me in public. Actually, I said, climbing down from the dunking booth platform, I was just sitting here doing volunteer work. You're the one who decided to make a scene. Officer Avery, a cop I'd known since high school, appeared at the edge of the crowd. He'd obviously been working security for the festival, and had been drawn by the commotion. "Everything okay here, folks?" "She attacked me," I said, gesturing to Erica. "Well, tried to attack me. There are about 50 witnesses." "That's not what happened," Erica protested. "He's been stalking me, harassing me, ruining my life." Officer Avery looked around at the crowd, then back at Erica, who was still sitting in the dirt and showing no signs of getting up. "Ma'am, did you come here looking for your husband?" "Ex-husband," I corrected. "Did you approach him while he was working at this booth?" Erica's silence was answer enough. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to move along. If you have issues with your ex-husband, you can handle them through the courts, but you can't harass him at a public event." "This isn't over," Erica said, as Mrs. Conway finally succeeded in helping her to her feet. "You think you've destroyed me, but I'll find a way to—" "Ma'am," Officer Avery interrupted. "I strongly suggest you go home and cool off. Don't make this worse for yourself." As Erica was led away by Mrs. Conway and a few other well-meaning neighbors, I climbed back onto the dunking booth platform. The crowd was still watching, unsure whether the show was over. "Well," I announced, "that was more excitement than I signed up for. Who wants to try to dunk me the old-fashioned way?" The crowd laughed, and just like that, the tension broke. Kids started lining up again, parents resumed their conversations, and life at the festival returned to normal. But I could see people taking photos and videos, posting to social media, sharing the story of Erica's public meltdown. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know exactly what kind of person she really was. As I sat on the platform, waiting for the next person to try their luck at dunking me, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: genuine happiness. Not the satisfaction of revenge or the pleasure of winning, but the simple contentment that comes from being exactly where you belong. Erica had been right about one thing. I was a boring, ordinary man. But there was nothing wrong with being ordinary. There was dignity in it, peace in it, and a kind of strength that people like her would never understand. The next baseball hit the target, and I plunged into the cold water with a splash that sent the crowd into cheers. As I surfaced, sputtering and laughing, I realized that this was exactly where I wanted to be. Free, happy, and finally ready to start the next chapter of my life. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let someone else's choices define your worth. Sometimes it's just being yourself, unapologetically and without compromise. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, karma handles the rest.